Welcome to Marcor Studios, where here we will be interviewing different industry professionals and educating our homeowners as well as the industry as a whole. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Marcor Studios. We are here today with the CEO of Long Island Builders Institute, Mike Florio. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Gina.
So, lots of changes in the industry happening.
Yep. It's an interesting time.
So, what are you seeing? I guess let's start with the tariffs. What are your thoughts on this? Of how this is going to affect us?
I'm so tired of talking about the tariffs. It's the one thing everyone wants to know about. I mean, listen, the tariffs are real. They're here, but now they're paused. I mean, I think the problem with the tariffs is really the uncertainty it creates. We've gone through this cycle, it seems, for the past few months of, it's going to be here, it's going to be there. It keeps changing. Now we have this 90-day pause. We have this 10% baseline that seems to be baked in now. As I said previously and in another conversation I was having is when you look at the construction industry, okay, most of our lumber comes from Canada.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of our drywall and gypsum comes from Mexico. I mean, that's those are two big cost drivers for home construction. I mean, the bottom line is that you're going to see increased costs, and that is going to translate to increased, prices for someone to pay for housing, whether that's rent or, someone buying a home. So, the price of housing affordability keeps getting further and further away from more people, and that's really the issue we're trying to solve here
on an island that is already as expensive as it is.
I mean, you keep looking. I mean, the demand here far outpaces the supply.
Yes,
and I always say it's not just one thing we need. We need everything.
Yeah,
all types of different housing for young people, for older people, those in between, all different price points, and we just don't have it. So that's why you keep seeing the sale prices, the rental. I mean, I just went to, was out in Station Yards the other day. I was talking to Tritech, and I said, "How are you guys? How far is your rentals going here?" I think there's 388 units. 386 are leased.
Done. Yeah.
I mean, that's again, the demand there is just
huge,
incredibly high.
So why do you, on these community outreach, meetings that we're always at, town hall, why do you think there's so much opposition when we know these people want to keep their kids here, they want their grandkids here? Why is there so much opposition?
They do, because people just they fear change. In general. I mean, Long Island is again one of the first suburbs in the country. This was built as post World War II housing. People were leaving the cities, they were coming out to this beautiful piece of suburbia, and they wanted the white picket fence and the Levitt house and all that. And that's sort of ingrained in our DNA. Now we know we need to change that. We need to evolve.
Yeah.
We're really one of the first suburbs in the country that's going through this evolution. We're 80 years old at this point.
Yep.
And it's time to change. So you have people that don't want to see that, and that's the problem. I mean, again, people know it, but many of them, like you and I, we're going on with our life. We're you're involved in the PTA or the baseball team or the church or whatever you're doing. And you're not like, oh, I'm going to go to the town board and sit there for an hour and yell and scream that I don't want this. And it's the same things all the time. Traffic, wastewater, schools.
But you think about it and you're like, and every time I get up and talk to them, you're sitting there and something's going to go there.
Yeah.
Land is scarce here. So it's like, why would you not want an opportunity for, more living space here? And the bodies are here no matter what. It's just a matter of giving them a place, like you said, that's affordable.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing sometimes, that people think that they have the right to dictate, what someone else who owns land can do with their land.
Yeah.
There's zoning and all things there, but, we don't want that. We want this, change this, change that. You know what? Sometimes it doesn't work. And that's really, when you look at the economics of things right now, a lot of projects don't make sense to go forward with at this point, just because we still have a high rate environment. It's not what it was in COVID, and even before that for many years we were in this low interest rate environment. So now we're looking at 6, 7, 8%.
Yeah.
Plus the costs have just gone up. everything. I'm sure we'll talk about insurance costs,
Yep.
labor costs, material
Just said my
costs.
favorite word.
All right. I mean, it keeps going up. So, when you build something new, people go, why is it so? Well, that's what it costs to build. You know?
It's really, it is getting scary, but I'm curious, you go single family builders versus remodelers versus multifamily builders. The multifamily builders have the most risk right now because they're already allotting, budgets to these projects. And now all of a sudden, let's say somebody's 3 years into a build and they didn't anticipate, these tariffs. I think that's why this, keeps coming up as such a fear is we don't have distinguished answers here.
Right.
We were just talking before about how, we bought a container of nails, and if I bought that container of nails from what it was a month ago to today, it's a 70% increase.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, no, you can't plan for that. And
that's my cost.
Right. That's just going back to like the uncertainty.
Yeah.
If you can plan for something, then you figure out, well, either I can do this because it makes sense or I can't do this or it makes sense. But when I have this, I don't know what it's going to be environment.
Yep.
It's tougher to plan. So a lot of projects are people are sitting on their hands right now saying, well, I'm not doing anything until I can see the path.
Do you think that it's going to affect quality in any way?
It could. I mean, people, will look to do maybe, cheaper materials or, cut corner here and there. Again, when your margin is like that, okay?
Already.
Right. And now it's getting squeezed even further. It's like, well, where can I, shave a little bit off here? And then, you could see an effect.
So, I'm starting to see, and I was just at a national roofing conference, and the conversation about, tariffs on nails came up. And nails is probably, on the roofing side, the biggest thing we're going to face. So the interesting thing is that when you use certain brand shingles, if you use 6 nails per shingle, you have a 130-mile-an-hour wind warranty. If you use 4, you have 110. Well, 2 nails per shingle times maybe 5 roofs a day times 5 days a week. You could save yourself quite a bit of money over a year by just cutting those expenses.
You make a great point. Like, how does this affect us, right? How does this affect, so no one's really probably sat down besides you and, people in your business and said, the nails, okay? The simplest thing down to the nail we're literally talking is affecting the pricing.
100%.
Okay. And that's scary when you think about it like that. So, and there's probably hundreds of other examples in this industry and other industries where we've rushed these things through and no one's really sat and thought through it.
Yep.
And now we're all have to face the consequences of that.
But you bring up a good word, is consequences, because, going from 4 nails to 6 nails, to me, I'm not gonna take a chance on quality.
Because you're sacrificing your quality.
Because, now you're exposing, the builder, the developer to, okay, we're on Long Island. Are we gonna get 110-mile-an-hour wind warranties? Wind, probably not. But if I have 2 more nails per shingle and I can get them a better warranty, why would I want to manipulate my reputation in any way? But there's going to be people that do it, or there's going to be people that cut corners because we don't have a whole lot of code enforcement. Unfortunately, it's on the builder developer, it's on the GC, it's on the homeowner to know, is it being done to code? There's all of the code required items on, for example, a roof aren't being enforced. So what's going to happen is they're just going to eliminate them from the systems, keep the costs down, but now you're exposing the homeowners. So it is going to cause a bit of a domino effect. While we're on that topic, where are you seeing, or what kind of feedback are you getting about the labor side of things?
I mean, the labor side as far as costs go, or the
immigration side?
The immigration.
I guess that's kind of a two-pronged fork over there.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard as much about it yet, and I'm my belief is that it really hasn't hit here yet. But I know you have some recent examples. I haven't heard as much, but it's a concern that's out there, and it's something that's going to have to be addressed as well. Making sure that people have the proper paperwork. You can show that they're legally required and can work here. But again, it adds another level of uncertainty to it. So now we have uncertainty on the material and cost side. You have uncertainty on the labor side. It creates just a bigger problem for the industry.
Yeah, and it's actually causing a problem even more so for the small guys, because they don't have the infrastructure. They don't these guys have a truck or two and a couple guys in the field. They don't have an office staff to say, hey, I need you to make sure the I-9s are on file, or whatever the case may be. But I feel like that's going to definitely be an issue. But the rising cost of living here
right,
are now causing us.
Well, it's even this, like, the cost of compliance, right? The cost to make sure you're in compliance with these things, as you know, I've talked about before, and what you just said, there are people that they're here trying to make a living, right? And he said they got a small business they're running. Now you add, again, layer this other cost of complying with these new standards and the scrutiny that's out there. And some people just going to, throw their hands up and say, you know what, forget it. It's not worth it anymore.
And then layer on top, the increased interest rates and, trying to finance a project, whether you're a builder developer or you're even like in our position. I ran somebody through a loan yesterday, and it was supposed to be an 8% interest rate, and his debt to income ratio was all out of whack. I got hit back with a 12.94% interest rate. And the guy's like, I need a roof. I have no choice. And I didn't even feel right giving him that, because I was like, I can't let you spend that money in interest. He's like, it's the only way I can do this.
It's just, that's the biggest problem in the country right now. And this is what, our elected officials really have to solve is the affordability crisis that we all face in all aspects of life.
Yeah.
It's becoming harder and harder for people to live. I mean, I was at a dinner last night and someone said, listen, 56% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. And if you don't get that next check, then, you figure, am I buying my medicine? Am I, what am I doing with my kids? Can I pay for their child care? Am I paying my rent?
Yeah.
Those are all the decisions that come. So, it's the basic thing of trying to put a roof over your house. Like I said, you need a roof.
Yep.
It's going to cost a lot.
It's unfortunate, but I feel like there's so much red tape, and every day it's another regulation, and it's, there's so many government agencies involved in what we do on a daily basis, whether it's from a licensing standpoint, whether it's, New York State Insurance Fund, whether it's, OSHA, we've got the EPA, and like everywhere you turn, they want something, and it's affecting from to the bottom, which now obviously travels to the top, and then it's going to affect the end user, who's, the purchaser.
Yep.
Supply chain, where are we seeing that's kind of seems to have settled?
I think it's settled out. The big thing now is impact on tariffs. So I was talking with guys yesterday. So, they got containers on the water, stuff coming from China, but they're going to be hit with a big bill when it comes in here, and that's going to get passed on. Now they're looking at where else can I source materials from, what you're going through as well. So I think that's the next evolution in the supply chain issue is, are these tariffs staying? What will they look like after 90 days? And where am I going to be able to get my materials from going forward?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we go through, 4 to 6 trucks a week in this place. Mm-hmm. So, I can rotate out a lot of material in a week. What happens, like you said, in 6 months, for me, a lot of my contracts, luckily, I don't have to buy out long periods of time. But if I go, builder developer, a lot of the time now what they're doing is they're going for the job labor only,
right?
Because they roll less of a chance of rolling the dice. But as far as like the governmental agencies and the enforcement of that, that's where I see a potential issue now coming down, because what we're seeing is people have to cut it somewhere, right? So like we both have families, and if things get tight, you got, okay, you know what, I can't get you this and this, or
there goes Nintendo,
right? So you got to cut somewhere.
Yeah.
When you're running a business, what ends up happening is people they're willing to roll the dice. And, there's people like myself that don't want to roll the dice. Mm-hmm. But where I see dice already getting rolled is, you mentioned insurance. Insurance is something that we're seeing people putting limitations in their policies. We're seeing complete exclusions for certain things. Mm-hmm. And, that ends up affecting everybody involved. And while the number looks appealing, the lack of enforcement is a big issue. Right. And I think the lack of education. What can we do to combat that?
The cost of insurance is
ridiculous,
through the roof, ridiculous. I mean,
pun intended.
Right, and in all aspects, quite frankly. But so that's something we're trying to make more aware of. We need some reform here to bring that cost down. We've got to look at other things that are out there. The one thing we always talk about scaffold law, and that's a big driver of the price. There is a bill in Albany which would make it a felony to stage an accident. So this is something we've seen in the past couple of years. There has been much more evidence of fraud of using this law, where people are faking injuries. There's been so the New York Post has run a series, the Wall Street Journal has written on this, News, they just wrote something.
I'd be interested in you looking into the Department of Labor and seeing how many of those became poached from these traffickers and all of that stuff too.
Right. I mean, there's a migrant exploitation issue. There's organized crime and gangs involved in this. So the fact that we have this and it's being exploited now for the wrong reasons is a problem. So there's a bill that would make it a felony to stage an accident, which hopefully is more of a deterrent. It's not solving the problem. The problem really should be solved with having a comparative negligence standard. And there are things that we're working on as an industry. We're actually looking at some federal legislation too that could go towards this. Maybe as a remedy, because it's unlikely to be addressed adequately through New York State.
So how are they catching that it's a false claim?
I mean, there's video evidence.
In my case, I don't have cameras on every job site. I could run 6-7 job sites in a day.
All right.
There's no way for me to add another layer of another expense to have somebody there or invest in the cameras. Those stage accidents are now going to dwindle down to the residential sector. Yeah. And that opens an exposure there, because they're like, all right, well, now it's catch me if you can. Mm-hmm. And that I can see being an issue too. And we're seeing it already. We just had to settle a loss. A guy claims that he wasn't even on our roster, claimed he fell 10 feet.
Yeah, that's the same one I heard from. Oh, not the same type of example. Someone wasn't even there. No evidence of them ever being on the job.
Nope.
But
paid out $300,000.
Yeah, this one was $150,000, and the person I talked to was furious. Yeah. They thought maybe it was gonna be 10 or something like that. $150,000, and what person wasn't even legally there to working.
Oh, what you weren't even on site, but and it happened. The guy happened to, and the fact that they wouldn't even go to trial on it, I was willing to take it all the way.
Right.
And this guy ended up saying he broke his back and his leg, but he didn't go to the hospital for 10 days.
Yeah. I mean, there's cases of doctors and lawyers being involved where people are having surgeries they don't need
which is
in certain cases, right? Which is crazy, right? So again, they're taking advantage of the migrant population, where they come here, they stick a document in front of them. Someone tells them, "Hey, go do this. You're going to get paid X, $10,000, $15,000, which is probably a lot of money to them."
Yeah,
they do it, and they go and now the guys behind it are going to end up getting millions of dollars.
Yeah,
but they're having a guy come in here who's walking away with a couple, $10,000. But he's spinal fusion surgery that he doesn't need.
Yep.
So it's just it's wrong. It's gotten out of control, and sometimes the things have to get broken before they get fixed. And we're at a point now where this system is broken.
Yep.
We're the only state in the country that still has this law. It's over 100 years old. And again, when we say scaffold, everyone goes, "Well, it's a New York City thing." No, it's not a New York City thing. No. Okay, it's any gravity-related injury that happens.
You're talking. I mean, you have an 18-inch pile of dirt on a job site. It's scaffold law. You got a divot in the ground. It's scaffold law.
All right.
You have, an excavator digs. I got right now. We're doing work in our backyard. There's 4-foot trenches. Somebody falls in there. That's scaffold law.
All right.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but I actually found an interesting fact about labor law and scaffold law. So we obviously know that there's a single and if you are the owner of a single or two-family dwelling, that you're excluded from the scaffold law.
Right.
Do you know that if there's a for-profit business within that house, you are now no longer excluded from the scaffold law? So if you have a rental,
so if you're operating a business out of that house,
you're operating a business. You have maybe you're a social worker and you have your therapy sessions and your converted garage or whatever. You are now running, and since COVID, how many people are running
business
out of this? And I was like, here I am thinking, me for a while. I am very well versed in scaffold law, and I was like, wait, I'm always up for learning more, but
another wrinkle
did not know that, because I'm going to sit there now and be like, hey, by the way, I know you're looking at this guy, but I noticed you own a business out of here, or your husband. How do people know that they don't have a consulting company that they're running out of their house? It's scary stuff. And now you're like, all right, well, you want to just at least cut that insurance at some level to protect yourself, but now, and everyone says, how is the homeowner even supposed to know? How is a property owner supposed to know? The builders and developers is a different story. They have the infrastructure for somebody to vet those insurances. But, I definitely see this definitely getting harder before it gets easier.
Yeah.
As far as technology, let's shift to that side. I know you've been doing a lot with OpenGov. Can you explain a little bit what OpenGov is and what the purpose behind it is?
Yeah, so OpenGov is it's a software, basically, and it is used by municipalities across the country for a host of reasons. But one of the things it does is it's online building permit applications, and it can do a ton of other things as well. But what we've seen is, and we've seen many of the municipalities here, the towns especially, starting to adopt this. So I was involved in 2 recent rollouts in Oyster Bay and North Hempstead. Now, Islip is looking at this technology. It's already been in place in Hempstead and Huntington.
Yep.
I'm actually personally going through it in Huntington right now because doing a project in my house. But it's basically, you can submit your application online, you submit your plans, it's all done through there.
Yep.
You can see where it's going, you track it, who's your plans examiner, you can communicate with them.
All in real time.
All in real time. It's much better. I mean, right now, as I've said, the days of pen and paper and filling out an application and faxing it or scanning it and, or physically going to a building department, that should be done.
Yeah.
And this is good for both the end user, whether it's the contractor, the homeowner, but also the employee at the town that's reviewing this too. Okay.
Sure.
It adds accountability. It adds tracking. You could see, is it getting stuck somewhere? Is there a log jam in the system that needs to be fixed? Because usually it goes into the ether. No one knows where it is. And then I get calls and, hey, where is my permit? Where's my application? Can you look into this? So it's a much better, and I think it's something that will actually save money over the, one to the end user, the business or the homeowner, but also to the town. They could then, maybe free up some people to do other things and redeploy their, resources elsewhere.
I think that's the biggest thing. We have a huge limit on enforcement. So for the towns to be able to repurpose that money and enforce what the law is, a lot of people look at that from my standpoint as government wanting to tax you again, and not realizing that this is actually a huge advantage for everybody involved, from the person pulling the permits to the homeowner waiting to get the permits.
Yeah.
It's just such transparency. And then there's the ability to have other softwares that tie into those things. And
eventually if they could all talk to one another, I mean, sometimes, again, we talked about this earlier. There's so many lines here, right? There's so many different layers. So if the town or the village could talk to the county and vice versa, and maybe that could talk to the state when you need things. If these systems, I mean, people always say you can order something on Amazon, when it's shipped, where it is, who's delivering it, the technology is available out there.
It is. There's nobody able to implement it. And it's not even that you're having to spend so much more money. You're bringing in that money and you're repurposing it else, what you're saving. Right. I mean, when I was on that call with you with, I don't remember, it was an OpenGov call, and they were saying there was a $50,000 savings just paper.
There's a ton. Yeah, right, exactly. The paper savings. Plus with, as we become more versed in AI now too, I think that's another way. I mean, that's like, game changing as far as implementing that at the government level. But that, that'll eventually become a reality too. Maybe one day you submit your plans and they're AI reviewed, and then they spit out comments that maybe a human can then look at and say, okay, well, do I agree with this?
Yeah.
And so you can move forward with that. I mean, but you see the stuff that AI is doing.
It's amazing.
It's
scary,
incredible.
but it's amazing.
Right. We'll all be replaced one day.
Yeah. I was going to say roofers can't be replaced yet, but I did actually just see a roofing robot. There is. They already created it, but they can't get into the valleys yet. They can't get into the sidewalls. So we still need bodies for that stuff. But I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today with us.
Thanks for having
letting us know what's going on in the industry. So thank you for that. And just keep doing it. You're doing a great job. So just keep it up, because
thank you.
You're doing a great job for this industry.
Very much. And happy to be here today with you to talk about this stuff.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.